One of the biggest events in Europe in the biotech sector is without a doubt BioEurope, and this year's event was held in the beautiful German city of Leipzig. As well as lots of colour-coded booths for one-on-one meetings, there were also plenty of exhibitors, so Labiotech had an opportunity to find out about the biotech scenes in Portugal, Greece and Mauritius, as well as to talk to more than a dozen companies about their work.
Atriva is really a company which always has been focusing on current pandemic infectious disease caused by RNA virus, and it's also geared up to fight as an early defense against the next pandemics to come. We have developed a technology, host cell factors, small molecules which focus on certain factors in the host cell, which all of these RNA viruses need to activate in order to replicate and to abuse the protein and the cell building machinery in order to propagate viruses. And our scientists 20 years ago have discovered that fundamental mechanism, and we are, with the foundation of the company 7 years ago, we tried to deploy that knowledge and to build a company around and develop a drug, which we now did. And we have now the first phase 2 study successfully completed and could nicely demonstrate that for SARS-CoV-2 there is a clear-cut clinical activity in patients which are hospitalized with a lack of oxygen, so short breath. And this is we're going to publish it soon, and we have already filed a press release on that, so it's public domain. And this is the building block then to develop this drug further, and also our pipeline for similar severe respiratory diseases caused by those viruses, like influenza, like RSV, like dengue fever from dengue virus, the hantavirus, which is a rare disease but very dangerous, and others up to chikungunya, West Nile, so also tropical viruses. So this class of drugs can really be quite useful to fight the next pandemics to come around the corner. Early is an early defense line and protecting our hospital systems to collapse.
And what you're developing, is that to cure, or does it just alleviate the symptoms?
It is a real cure. We feel so. We do see a double one mode of action which has a double benefit. This means we do have a clear antiviral activity because our drug is inhibiting this signaling cascade RAS, RAF, MEK, ERK, which these viruses all need to activate in order to replicate. So we have a clear-cut antiviral effect, and even more pronounced, we have also a beneficial effect on the right sizing of the immune answer. People in hospital are not dying from a viral overload or something like that. They are dying from a derailed immune answer. The immune system overshoots in its answer and ultimately kills the patient, makes him or her die. And this, with this technology, we are able to right size the answer and support the healing properties of the body. For example, the cellular and adaptive immune response is supported by this approach, which is quite important for the overall prognosis.
And when it comes to COVID, obviously one of the biggest issues has been the variations that have developed, the variants that have developed over time. So this would address all of that too?
It's actually addressing all variants which are able to develop to a severe disease. So the most pronounced efficacy had been the Delta or Alpha. The activity, as it's of course important that the patient gets severely ill, and Omicron is not a virus which really per se renders the patients severely ill, rather than more additional factors which we may also influence, for example, immunocompromised patients. But the efficacy is most pronounced, really very strong in patients who are diseased by a drug like the original, like the virus, like the original Delta variant or the Alpha variant or the others. Same you see, for example, with a pandemic flu or one of the more more virulent epidemic flu strains. They all, let's say, get the body to overshoot with their immune answer, especially the cytokine and chemokine system, which you don't see with Omicron. So Omicron is actually a mild disease. Only some people get to severe symptoms, especially if they are severely ill with a concomitant disease. But you can say, in a nutshell, almost all of these variants are covered. And for example, we did see with the previous preclinical work on influenza that we could say all variants which were known from influenza up to now were covered, from the bird flu, from the Spanish flu 100 years ago to the latest bird flu and swine flu. So this is a broad approach.
Right. And so that would also apply to the next pandemic that we're not aware about yet.
This is the special promise we are trying to make, is because we have, in the meanwhile, data in the petri dish of 12 viruses and more to come, all of them very contagious and virulent, and for 5 virus classes we have data in animals, in suitable animal models, and now for one we have the proof of concept in the clinic, and the next to come. This is why our next clinical study, we are focusing on the next pandemics to come. If you like, we call it PANTER study, Pandemic Therapy, the acronym. And this is targeting 3 dangerous viruses: RSV, influenza, and SARS-CoV-2. And this is the clinical setting, or the clinical symptoms are very similar. And so we are doing a type of basket trial where we are collecting all patients coming in with the different indications. And we are supported by the massive improvements now on the spot, in the bedside diagnostics. This is really helpful. So you can have decisions being made within 5 minutes, where 5 years ago you needed 48 hours to see what type of virus it would be. So this is certainly this improvement and advancement in diagnostics of viruses is of course very much helpful for us as drug developers. So we are quite currently ramping up this trial, also ramping up parallel financing to that as a mixture of equity but also non-dilutive funding. We already got massive non-dilutive funding by the European community, and the German government was very supportive in the COVID times, because prior to COVID, investors were not overly interested in infectious disease. It's not sexy, it's not a stable business model. But COVID has told us the difference right now, how many billions and trillions the costs caused by COVID is amazing, really, and frightening. So we should be better prepared for the next pandemics to come. But we are also aiming to provide a cure for diseases like influenza, which are always around, or RSV. It's also a killer for elderly with let's say, heart disease and immunocompromised ones. So lots of casualties. This is what we are currently doing, and we are hoping to have our first product developed in the next 3 years to initial submission of an approval and then market introduction. And if the data is strong, and we know that from the authorities, in the case of a new pandemics or an aggravation of the COVID-19, they are very happy to also do grant conditional approvals and the like. That's the core of our business model. We have also pipeline on some tropical diseases like dengue and chikungunya. With dengue, we are currently developing a clinical strategy and together with a not yet disclosed Asian partner, because this is also a very serious and important disease which is now creeping into Europe, into Northern America, just to the climate warming.
And climate change is affecting other things other than just the weather.
Yeah. There's all the animals. We are living closer and closer to animals, and these are all zoonotic diseases that they jump from the animals at a certain stage to mankind and then develop further and adapt further. The good thing is that most of those getting from the wild animal to a tamer one as they develop, and also COVID seems to go that pathway, but you never know. The next one could be very different. This is why we see it as quite important that this type of armamentarium available for mankind. Our drug, this is just a short pitch, of course, is stable. It is easy to manufacture, so it's also affordable for mankind, also in the tropical climate rim. This is in contrast to these hugely expensive antibodies and the stuff which had been initially developed, which are all now useless because of the changes and adaptation and mutations of the virus. This is the big issue with these antibodies. You produce them and then you have to throw it away. But of course it was important to have them at the beginning. So it was good that the government supported those type of research.
And then you have the US government now concerned about things like the use of viruses in biological warfare. So that's another.
Yeah, this is the story around the hantavirus. Hanta is geared up to be such a silent killer. Can be extremely dangerous, especially the North American strains, Sinombre, and also the Hanta-An strain from Korea, North Korea. First found in a small city called Hanta-An, and those are being feared to be abused as a bioweapon, as a biowarfare. This is why DARPA and BARDA, they are both looking into co-funding this type of developments. And our drug could make the purpose. We are discussing with them currently, including also having plans to set up an US subsidiary in order to run studies there, which is important. Anyway, the largest market in the world.